Welcome to Midlife Matters. I'm Marie, and each week I'm joined by my friends Julie and Mindy to talk about all the topics keeping women in the middle years up at night. Today we're talking about hospitality and teenagers. What do they need to learn before they leave the house? Join us as we share what we've tried to teach and what we're still working on. In fact, we're discovering we can all use a refresher on the finer points of welcoming house guests. Let's get started. Listeners, today we're talking about teaching cleaning and the art of hospitality to teenagers, which that is difficult. And honestly, I'm thinking I might pick up some tips for myself, even though my teens are currently in college, because can't we all use a refresher course sometimes?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I'm looking forward to hearing what you guys have to say about this.
Yes. So we're going to jump right in with the phrase, cleanliness is next to godliness. Many of us have heard this phrase, and in fact, lots of us grew up believing that this principle is actually in the Bible. And even though it's not, I kind of like the idea of it. I know I feel more grounded and happy, and dare I say, close to God, if I'm in a clean environment. I just do, you guys. I really think this should be a proverb.
I know. I'd like to know where that actually came from.
All of the wise older women were passing this down. But I have thought about this. The cleanliness is close to godliness or next to godliness. I don't even know how it's said, right? But I feel like in my own home, I do feel that I'm cleaning up, like it's a literal cleanup of what's happening on the inside. And when I don't feel good on the inside, I tend to let things go more. So I feel like there's kind of something to that.
Yeah. And God is a God of order, not chaos. So I kind of think, well, maybe it comes from there. When you clean up for someone, it's an act of service, to keep your space and their space neat and make it presentable. So I do feel like there's a little spiritual lesson in there somewhere.
Yeah.
Thank you, Julie. The wise, older, in air quotes, woman.
Yes. And one of our favorite authors, Gretchen Rubin, actually has a book called Outer Order, Inner Calm. And that phrase is just 100% true for me. And I think for a lot of people, if we have an orderly environment, we are more calm. And yet we never can seem to get this quite down pat in our home. And it's really hard to maybe instill that in our kids. So we're going to talk about that a little bit today. Let's start out with talking about cleaning and teens. And I don't know if I'm quite the person to lead this discussion. I'm going to rely on Julie and Mindy because I think a few episodes I actually said that I've pretty much given up on asking my teenagers to clean and that I'm just going to enjoy when they're home from college and not worry about it. And now this episode is like, okay, Marie, maybe your work is not totally done. So Julie and Mindy, what do you have for listeners here? What did you guys teach your teens about cleaning?
Well, I don't have teens anymore and none live at home, but I can certainly remember that time. And I wasn't afraid to ask my teens to work. I mean, remember, we were home together because they were homeschooled. So we just incorporated it as part of their day. Like once they finished their school, if they had a job to do, they weren't really free to go do whatever they wanted until that was also done. They kind of had jobs they knew that they were to do, like somebody took the trash out, somebody took the can down to the street every Monday night. But it wasn't like we had chore charts at this age, but I could just say, hey, I need somebody to empty the dishwasher. And they would, or can somebody vacuum the downstairs? That toilet needs cleaning. We take an afternoon to declutter, or I know before we took a road trip, it was always the kids' job to clean the car out, vacuum it, wipe it down, get it all ready. And then they cared a little bit more how it looked when we were on the road. I think when they know what it takes to get something clean, they're a little more invested in keeping it clean, Sometimes yard work. I mean, when David was the only one left, he did the yard work, and I'm really missing that kid.
Oh, no. Come home.
Cleaning out the litter boxes and taking the trash can down on Monday night in the cold. It's like,
oh my,
I miss all that. But I think you do have to kind of train them, give them the skills to know how to do all those things early, and then not be afraid to ask them to do it.
Oh, that's so true. Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the chore chart because I was like, was Julie one of those chore chart moms?
Oh, yeah.
I could so see you being that organized. I always wanted to be a chore chart mom.
Uh-huh.
It was a love-hate relationship. I
Was
hated
it?
keeping up with it, but that was the only way I could. They kind of liked it. You know, they liked seeing the doing and the reward and all that.
Oh, okay.
So,
I land more on the Frankie Heck chore chart, if you know what I'm saying.
I see a job and I start saying, you do it, you do it, you do it.
I know. I would make a chore chart and never use it.
Oh, okay.
It's hanging there and nobody knows what's going on.
Yeah.
What is that?
I've never been successful in one chore chart either.
I was going to ask Marie, were you the chore chart mom?
Oh, I tried, you know, but my kids eventually, I think I was going to charge $0.25 for every shoe that wasn't put away. I think that lasted like one day, and I think they knew it would last one day.
Right. Yeah. I have made threats before as well. I do recall that. Mine was more violence infliction. But okay, I do have to ask this. Did they get like allowance for certain chores around your home?
They did when they were little because that's how that was the motivation. But when they were older, it was like, you live in this house. You know, this is how the house runs, and somebody has to do the yard work. Somebody has to take the trash out. So it became just.
I will say that we paid Davis $25 to walk a push mower over an acre lawn, which took him about 3 hours. Yeah. But that was partly to build his bank account, partly to keep a boy that age busy because they're getting bored at that age and they can't go get a real job yet, and partly to help us out. But I can't really think of very many other chores that we ever like paid for. Sometimes I would pay people if they would clean the grout really good and they were like saving up for something. I might pay like $15. If you were willing to scrub the shower grout, because that was going to take a while, and I hate that job. Yes. But I didn't pay for like a regular weekly, other than the lawnmower.
Yeah, that's what I would do. Like if I had a task that needed to be done, instead of calling someone to do it, maybe like a handyman. I mean, not a handyman, but just somebody to clean something, or I would say, hey, I've got this job. Anybody want it? And this was something I kind of felt guilty about for a long time, because I remember my daughter, she was probably 13. I don't know, maybe younger. She had two friends spend the night on a Friday night. And then, you know how they kind of stay over on Saturday, the whole day. And we were going to have company that Saturday night. And the girls were saying, Mom, can we go to the mall? Well, I wanted to go to the mall too, but hey, I had to clean the whole house, get the dinner ready, you know. So I said, hey, there's 3 of them. Oh, no. I said, would you girls clean my house? And then if we get it all done, there's 4 of us working, probably take us an hour and a half, and then I'll take you to the mall. And I remember these 2 girls were cleaning my toilets and vacuuming my house.
That's awesome, Julie.
And I always wondered, what was their mother thinking?
It's more fun to clean someone else's house. So I'm sure they were probably just like talking and laughing and, you know.
They acted fine. And then I took them to the mall and I gave them each a little spending money, you know, because this was before I felt comfortable just dropping them off. So we all went to the mall and I came home. I remember coming home like right before the guests were going to arrive, and I had a clean house, and
that's great.
It was kind of fun. Yeah.
That's the way to do it.
Mutually beneficial.
Yeah, it was a win-win.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, we are all on the same page with this. We did go through a phase of like $5 a week for chores. So their rooms, and if they had access to a bathroom, you know, that was like theirs or whatever, then those were a given that they had to clean those. And so I would say like right now, it's probably once a week or once every 2 weeks that I still make my boys, I will sit down and write a list. That we found that works best. They write a list, and the key to the list is that you go back and check, because if you don't go back and check, then something didn't get done. I promise. But when you check, then they feel good, because then they want you to see what they did. So teaching them how to clean showers, how to polish wood furniture, how to clean mirrors, changing their shower curtain when it gets moldy, the trash, like the floor. I mean, it's amazing how many things you end up having to teach. And even now, like I'm getting more in depth with my boys because they're 16 and 14. So there are things they can get deeper, clean out of. Whereas before I was just like, all right, they're going to get the first layer off and then I'll go back in, you know?
Right.
But so really, one of them has to do a dishwasher clean out every morning. I start it every night. Everybody puts their dishes in the dishwasher as they use them. I never want to see dirty dishes sitting in my sink. And then the other does the trash removal. And so right now we just have 2 kids left. So that's what's happening. Yeah. But Julie, it's funny.
Enjoy it while it lasts, Mindy.
I know. We just had this scenario where Jacob had a friend over who lives on a farm and does all the farm work. Well, he came over and Bryce was like moving wood or splitting wood. There was something happening in the yard. And Jacob and his friend ended up working with Bryce, like after the boy had spent the night. And so Bryce paid him cash. Jacob didn't get paid.
Okay. Yeah. That makes sense.
But the friend got paid for helping. So there's things like that. And also in my van, I have always been extremely particular about my home away from home, which is my minivan. So from a young age, it was, we would pull into the house and get all of your trash and take it in, get all of your stuff. So even now the boys, if I drop them off at high school, they're walking away with their banana peels, napkins they've blown their nose in. Like they have to take it out and walk it to school to a trash can. I will not let them leave it in the van.
That's funny. Not in your trash can.
No. Nope, that's yours.
That's funny. We also added laundry. Starting in high school, each kid did their own laundry. Yeah. And I loved that because that's been off my plate for years now. And I don't know. They just, and then their sheets too. They, they did their bed sheets. And so that was nice not to have to do that. And they kept up with it, because they would run out of clothes.
Right.
I just got tired of doing their laundry, folding it, and then dumping it on the floor or living out of that basket. And then I couldn't tell if clean or dirty was in the basket. They seem to have the system all figured out, but I just couldn't deal with that. So I was like, okay, this is now your job. They actually preferred it. So,
yeah. That's a good transition.
Yeah.
All right. Well, cleanliness is next to godliness, according to the 3 of us. And I know that when I am getting ready to practice hospitality is when my cleanliness meter really amps up. And so let's move into how this relates to hospitality, because this is the season when I think a lot of people are hosting more and having out-of-town guests and family in and out for the day. And I know that everything gets messy. Like, it's great to pull out all the Christmas decorations and have all that too. But I think our homes can also feel extra cluttered, extra dirty with extra stuff, extra people. So this is kind of a timely topic. But let's just talk about what we ask of our teens and what we ask in regard to them for hospitality. So we don't have an extra guest room and never have. I would just so love to get to that point in some time in my life. I probably will, in the next 4 years after people are done with college. I always feel like that would make hospitality so much easier if there was already a designated clean room and bathroom. But every space in my house is always used. But we still have hosted. And Mindy, I know that you've had times in your life too where every single bedroom was being used and you've still hosted. And Julie, I'm sure that's been true for you too. So what do you do when you don't have those designated spaces for guests?
Yes. I am thankful that when the kids got older, we started having a designated guest room. Ironically, now we have 3 designated guest rooms while it's just the 4 of us at home. However, every time a holiday hits and everyone comes home, we still come up short. And everyone wants this one particular room.
Is it the one I stayed in? Because I would put my reservation in for that one.
Yes, that's it. So people want to put their reservation in for that room because it's the nicest. It's got the best king size bed, the biggest. It has a window. I mean, because we have other rooms that don't have a king and don't have a window or whatever. So we put beds everywhere in this house.
Okay.
But yeah, when the kids were little, it was a lot harder because, especially if you're still dealing with nap time kids and also, who gives up their room. And so it was always Abby that gave up her room and she never minded. When I lived at my parents' house, it was always me that gave up my room. And it was mainly because we had the nicest bed or, it was the nicest room or maybe it was the cleanest, easier to get ready.
Yeah.
And so now it's interesting because I still can have a boy lose a room and I could still have two boys lose a room depending on who all's coming. And so it can be a little bit fun. We've had kids camp out in our room on the floor and, throw an air mattress down there or people on couches or whatever. So I think if, depending on how old the kid is, I think it just falls where the oldest person coming gets the nicest space. So I even have to I have to prioritize my guests that are coming. So for instance, real life example, Abby and Joey are coming. I'm going to give them the nicest guest room. When my mother-in-law shows up, they know they're going to have to move because my mother-in-law will get the nicest guest room. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I
order of seniority.
People, Jacob and Nathan, they're lucky to get,
they get a towel on the floor.
They're the youngest. They're more mobile. I will make sure that they are comfortable. Everyone will have warm blankets and a pillow. But your condition may not be as bougie as the mother-in-law.
Right. And now that we're getting up there in years, we're like, thank you for that, Mindy.
Yeah. One day that'll be us.
Yeah. No, that's true. I mean, obviously, when we have had guests, and we are not, believe it or not, when you have 5 kids and no guest bedroom and all 5 kids share a bathroom, that's really not a magnet for guests. Like, we rarely have overnight guests, but we have had occasional overnight guests. My grandmother from California used to stay with us. Steve's roommate will come down from New York and stay with us sometimes. A couple of years ago, my son and daughter-in-law needed a place to stay during COVID because her parents had an elderly relative there, so they couldn't stay there. And so they were going to stay I don't know, I'll say 4 nights. And I remember it threw me into such a tizzy because, okay, I'm going to have to displace a child, but now I've also got my daughter-in-law staying in this what I feel is less than ideal situation, sharing the bathroom with, all the siblings and everybody else. Right. And then, but anyways, it worked out fine. But again, I was wishing for that just designated space, but it worked out fine. What I did was, Lauren happens to have what you said, Mindy. It went with, okay, what's the nicest guest space? Lauren has a queen size bed. So Maddie and Davis get that. Lauren, do you mind giving up your bed for Maddie and Davis? I'm sure she was like, Sometimes I've been known to pay $10 a night for whoever's willing to sleep in the bonus room nice. Because that's very nominal and it's no fun to sleep in the bonus room. So she may have earned $10 a night. I'm not sure. Maybe Isaac said, no, I'll take the $10 and Lauren might have taken Isaac's bed. I don't remember at this point, but Maddie and Davis ended up with the nicest guest space. And then I tried to make it as neutral as possible. Like, okay, let's take away Lauren's personal things as much as possible, and kind of make it feel like, okay, well, I'm not just stepping into a teen girl's bedroom every single time I walk in here and I have to walk over her clothes and this and that. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, there is a lot of shuffling when you have guests. My daughter Lauren is bringing home a friend who can't get home to Virginia for Thanksgiving. And so I really want Lauren to have a little bit of a break from socializing because she hasn't been home in a while from college. So I do want her to have a little bit of a break. So I said to my son, would you be willing to give up your room and sleep in the bonus room so that Lauren's friend could have your room and then Lauren can have her own room, which might sound like is that too indulgent? I don't know. I just feel like it's a lot to be on all day and to have not had any break. So I feel like both girls will have a little bit of a break. And Isaac was fine with moving to the bonus room. He didn't even ask me to pay him $10 a night. So we're moving into maturity.
Is he going to be listening to this? Because he might see a really good opportunity. My boys would love that.
Yeah. There is going to be musical beds over Thanksgiving, and that's just the way it has to be.
Yeah, and when you have the nicest bed all year long,
True.
That's why you have to give it up for 1 or 2 nights.
Yeah.
That's a good viewpoint. I'll say I'm glad you brought up like the kind of the decluttering of your daughter's room, because that's something that is a big deal, is if somebody's going to use a room that, they have a place to set things down, or, they're not trying to push a bunch of clothes over to hang up a dress,
Right.
Like, maybe they need to hang something up or set something down, or place, they're going to have luggage.
Yeah.
So.
And like, even in my son's room where the guest is going to stay, it's making me replace those ratty curtains that he cares nothing about. But I'm like, okay, let's get new. I've needed an excuse. It's making me do a little bit more with the bedding. Like, this is what happens when you host guests, which is fine. Yeah. I need a fire under my butt. But it's like, I do want it to be comforting and welcoming. I don't want it to just look like a teen boy's room where I'm crashing.
Yes. Yeah. And honestly, I feel like the biggest sacrifice is just getting it clean, getting it to the point of, listen, when you look at a boy's bathroom and you think, I've got a guest coming to use this, that's a whole nother level of clean than what I require the boys like on a weekly basis, and I'm like, spray some bleach in that, and I'm like, okay, it's good. Well, now I'm like, all right, we're replacing the shower curtain. We're doing different towels. So it's totally different. But once it's clean, I'm so happy with it.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting that you said that about the towels, Mindy, because I have towels that I save for guests. They're the ones that have not been run through the washer 8 million times and feel like they'll scratch your skin off. But and so I do have like softer towels for guests. And it's not that I couldn't have softer towels for everybody. It's just that they get worn out so fast. I don't want to replace them that often. But I do save some for guests, and then I'm like, I put those like in their room. It's like, okay, here's your nicer towels.
I'm going to put a plug in for Oprah.
Okay.
We haven't ever really talked about Oprah on here. I learned something from her years and years and years ago that I have never forgotten about hospitality. And it is having a separate pillow for your guest that has a pillow protector on it.
Good idea.
And a clean pillowcase. This is something I remember her talking about on her show. It's been 20 years? But I do actually have guest pillows that are in a closet with a pillow protector specifically for guests, that they're not going to use a pillow that a kid has used.
That a kid has had a bloody nose on.
All year long. Yeah, exactly. And the mattress pad is pretty important too.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
So, I mean, that's just my comfort level.
Right.
With providing a clean space.
Yeah. So there is a lot to do to prepare if you are having to switch out. It's like that thing. It's like that viral video where the woman's like, I don't want anyone to know we live here. It's like, I don't want anyone to know that anyone stays in this room all the other nights, but they actually do. But we'll do the best we can to make it look like that.
Well, I know we have a guest bedroom, a designated guest bedroom, which is a really good thing, because when you live in a great city that people want to come to, or that is on the way to everywhere, you do have a lot of guests. And so our guest room, I jokingly will tell people like the vacancy sign is out, like we're open.
Yes.
Because they'll call and say we're coming through. And so that room has, nice pillows and the towels that just go in that room. There are certain colors. So I know that's the guest room towels. And and I just, keep it ready. And back when my kids were home, like one time we had guests and it was 2 other couples. It was 9 kids and 6 adults in our house for 3 or 4 nights over New Year's Eve. So of course, then the adults got all the beds. And so that was a big, that was a different mindset, because that room wasn't just ready. It had been a teenage boys room. It had been a teenage girls' room. So,
Mhm.
yeah, that's when you think, oh, this mattress pad is ratty. These pillows don't smell so nice. And,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, and look at this bathroom. So it's much easier when you can just keep one ready versus having
Yeah.
to get it
Mhm.
ready.
Okay.
But,
Well,
you know, I just employed the kids' help. Like, if we're going to have this fun time, you got to
right.
help me get it ready. I always told them I never want to work alone. We're all in this
Yes.
together.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have your friends over. They can help clean, right?
Yeah.
I'll say I have the opposite problem happening now that if I do have a designated guest space and if it's not used often, I feel like I actually have to go clean a room that's been stagnant.
Mm.
So I've never had this issue before, but now I do, where I'm like, oh, I actually have to like dust it and vacuum it and and wash the bedding again and wash the sheets again because
Mm.
it's been sitting there too long. So I'm like,
Mhm.
oh, and that's the opposite,
Mhm.
end of the
Mhm.
spectrum of what I was used to doing. But I'm like, oh, now it's musty and dusty and it's just
Mhm.
sat there.
No, that's true too. Yeah. Because you know
Mm-hmm.
how sometimes you take the sheets out of the back of your linen closet and they were clean
Yep.
when you put them in there, but they have
Yep.
a weird smell
They do.
Yeah.
I
if they're
do.
not
I will
used often
wash
enough.
everything again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. So all of us ask our children to give up something when we're practicing hospitality, whether it's taking time to clean, giving up their bedroom, maybe canceling plans that they had for the night so they can be around the guests. How has some of that changed over the years for you guys? And maybe even just different generation ideas or attitudes towards it?
I so love that you brought this up because I do feel that like when I talk to my mom and she talks about when she was little, or I hear older women talk and they say things like, "Oh, my kid would have never had a bed, if I had
Mm.
somebody over."
Mm-hmm.
And then I talk to like a young mom and they're saying, "Oh, my kid can't give up their bed, their nap time would be thrown off."
Oh,
And I'm
okay.
like, "Wow, okay, so this could actually be a major generational shift. Whereas I know my mom talks about like even, when she was little, they weren't really apart. Like if her parents were having guests over or whatever, that kids were there, but they weren't the center of things. Like
Mm.
the adults were having the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas now I feel like everything, the shift or the trend is everything's kind of about the kid. Does
Mm.
that make
Mm-hmm.
sense?
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
pendulum has swung from being the priority being any adult in the house and the kid is just ignored. Who cares what you need or if you're uncomfortable,
Uh-huh.
suck it up, to no, I can't let my kid, suffer in any form or fashion. And if they're talking, everyone else needs to be quiet so they can talk. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Is that just me or have you guys noticed
No, I
anything like
think
that?
those are two extremes. Like
They are.
I think they're on the extremes.
Uh-huh.
And because I've been in a church setting where I heard a kid down the road just talking full volume to his parents and they never said anything. They never said, now, shh, this is a
Right.
time to be quiet and someone
Mm-hmm.
else is talking. It was like they just let him go,
Mm.
And
Right.
then used to, yeah, like in your grandparents' day, you might have gotten smacked for that.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
You're getting beat.
So yeah, the whole children seen and not heard thing, that's I think that's definitely a turnoff to this generation. But I think there's a balance, like
Yeah.
we definitely had times where we wanted just adult conversation and had adults over and our kids knew to go off and play upstairs. But we did think it was appropriate for them to maybe answer the door, greet the guests, have a
Yeah.
little conversation before, make eye contact,
Mhm.
shake
Right.
hands or whatever, like so that you are teaching your kids something about hospitality in a small way. But then there are other times where I knew those adults were fine with them being around. And if we were playing cards, our kids played cards too. Or,
Mhm.
Yeah.
we took them plenty of places and they were part of things and they enjoyed being with adults sometimes,
Mhm.
So I think there's a balance there. I actually looked this up and got I think it was on Reddit and
Oh,
saw
really?
the quite controversial.
Oh,
it was
tell
a
us.
heated conversation.
Mm.
It was this family said that they were having their 90-year-old grandmother come to stay and that none of those kids were giving up their bed, so they put her on the air mattress.
Oh,
Poor Granny.
And all the comments were just, oh my gosh, they were like, that is so ridiculous. Those kids should be on the couch or on the floor. Like whoever's oldest should have the beds. And and then I heard some people would say, well, if somebody's coming to your house and staying for free, they should just be grateful for the floor or the couch, And then other people were like, no, the older person gets the most comfortable bed. And so there was just a mix of responses on that. And I thought, not that I think kids should just have no rights and just be tossed aside.
Yeah.
But maybe it would help if you explain to your kids why you're doing it, like helping them see the love and the respect and the honoring an older generation and helping them to feel good about giving up whatever, not just that you have no right to this and we're doing this, but kind of getting them on board. And I'll say, like, my daughter doesn't have a guest room now, and I bought an air mattress, one of those real nice thick ones for me to sleep on when I'm there. And I do not mind that because he's 3 and you don't do anything to disrupt. Like, he barely wants to go to bed now in his bed. So we're not going to throw him out on the couch where he could be,
Right.
But, I'm talking
you want him to go to bed.
Yeah, we want him to go to bed. So, but teenagers, kids that can understand.
Agree.
I just think that you need to explain to them and help them to have the heart for why they're doing it.
Right.
Why they're making these sacrifices. Like we taught our kids, like, guests go first when you eat. You let them choose kind of what they want to do. Like you kind of prefer their wishes over your own. And that was not always easy.
Right. So I was thinking, even having like a kid table at Thanksgiving, like that's almost taboo now. You're like, the kid table. Everybody, like adults know that. And it's not necessarily as common. Like now, especially with teens, like there's no kid table. Like
really?
Right.
Because you didn't want to like relegate somebody to the kid table and they were offended.
Yeah.
You mean if they're kind of an adult though now? Or
Yeah.
do you mean, okay.
Well, I mean, like even sometimes kids being at a kid table, that like it's almost an offended thing to be put at the kids table.
Right. I would rather like shove as many people around the main table as possible.
Yeah.
Than have to have a kid table, because my kids have never enjoyed the kid table.
Yeah.
But maybe, in other families, my kids always want to be listening to the adult conversations, which was my favorite pastime of family gatherings too, was to listen to what everybody was saying. That's how I learned a lot of things in life.
That's right.
So, I don't want to be out at the kid table. I'm not going to learn anything out there. So,
right. Well, did you guys grow up eating at the kid table? Because I sure did.
I did at my grandmother's, but my cousins were all older than me. So I thought it was pretty cool that I got to be, they were like 10 years older than me. So I was around, I was still around.
So you
older
were
people.
learning things, Julie.
Yeah.
Listen, I loved the kid table. There was no adult supervision.
Right. I know.
We could throw food. We could get away with murder. Nobody knew because they were at the nice dining room table that was away from the kitchen. So we were left next to the food. We were left unattended.
Yeah.
We had a blast. But anyways, that's, back when houses had a lot of walls, and now it's all these big open shared spaces.
Yeah. I remember my grandmother's house was small, and it was kind of, it was one of those on a, like, I think it's called a conventional foundation, not a concrete slab. So every step you took, things rattled,
Oh,
and it was an old house, and my parents and all the adults were in the dining room, and we were at the kids' table in the den, and the house was kind of like a circle, and my cousin would sneak back through another room into the kitchen to get more rolls. And by the end of the meal, it was always, he always had a count of like 14 rolls or something,
Oh my goodness. I will say the thought, I'm right there with you, Julie, on all of your thoughts. And I even love that you brought up that you're happy to sleep on an air mattress at your daughter's house, because I think that there's just certain seasons and times and stages where you're just flexible with, depends on who's coming and when and things like that. And so I almost want to term it respectful hospitality. Like, I never wanted to disrespect my kids when people came, and I also for sure didn't want to disrespect the guest. So how can I be respectful to every person present? And that might take some conversations, even now, like having the boys, they're at the stage where they have to take off work to have family time. So like if we're going to drive to go see my Mima, I actually have to ask them to take off work. And that is something they have to sacrifice. But they know that like a couple times a year or whatever that's going to be, that I respectfully ask them like, hey, I need you to take off in a couple of weeks because we're going to do this. And really for them, if they just have a heads up, they're fine with it. If I throw it in last minute, they're not so fine with it.
Yeah.
So any way to try to respect the person during the season of giving, whatever they're giving.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about boundaries in hospitality. Like, are you allowed to say that we do or don't do different things in our house?
I let adults eat anywhere. We'll have dinner in the den or upstairs watching TV. When it was little children, I felt like it was okay to say, hey, can you keep them in the kitchen? Just especially like unsupervised little kids that could just wipe whatever, wherever,
Right.
But, if we've had adults spill things and I thought, you know what, I can clean it. It happens. It's okay.
I'm glad you brought that up because we don't really have like sodas or colored drinks in our house. Now we might if we're hosting and our guest would prefer that, then I would provide that. But no, so we have, I'm like, you can carry your water anywhere you want to. But like even my boys know, like if we have chocolate milk or orange juice or something, we do ask, and we will say, not to adults. So I'm glad you brought that up, Julie. I wouldn't necessarily say that to adults, but I would say that to even teenagers. I don't mind saying, hey, keep that in here.
Well, I learned that when I'm hosting for a lot of people on the drink thing, Mindy, is I would only serve diet drinks. Like when it was like those 2 liters, because we had someone spill a regular one once, and that is a nightmare to clean up because there's so much sugar. But if it's diet, it's just kind of like water. It's not all sticky. So I would only serve diet drinks or clear pops. Like,
you can have Sprite,
yes,
or water.
You can have Sprite or Diet Sprite or water.
I love it.
Sprite's got sugar.
I know. I really would buy the Diet Sprite. Some people are really like they won't drink diet drinks of any kind.
That's
so
true.
I would kind of in reserve, but now a lot of times I just serve sparkling water because that's easy to clean up too. But go on, Mindy.
If they're staying at your house, no, I love that, Marie. That is so genius. But I mean, like, you're not going to get a clear coffee. You know what I mean?
Oh, sure.
Oh, yeah. You've got coffee and tea now. And so the coffee thing, I don't know. I guess if you do have someone that tends to spill a lot, like I have those insulated coffee cups with the lid.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
I wonder if I don't sure, take it downstairs, but here's a to-go cup.
Right.
Well, and that's why I love the Tervis tumblers. Those are our main cups that we use for every day because they're insulated and won't leave a watermark. So I got tired of fighting the whole coaster thing. So
the watermarks on the wood furniture. You are so right.
Yeah. So, but I've been known to throw a coaster by, like if I see somebody set something on the table, I don't have a problem just saying, here's a coaster.
Oh, I love it. I do.
If it's a table that I really want to preserve and care about. If it's not, not that big a deal.
I just moved some end tables into my guest room that have the glass protector top on them. And I got them at an estate sale. They were secondhand. It was, they were cheap, but I was like, okay, this is the only way to get past the watermarks in a guest room because you can't fight that, I'm not going to fight that. Like make sure you put it on a coaster in the bedroom.
Right.
But, all right. So another issue is, the TV sometimes being on late at night. Like you could have guests come. First of all, we have guests come that are on a different time zone. Like we're tired at 9 and they're like, yeah, it's only 8 o'clock our time. And so thankfully, like my parents are really good because they will go downstairs when we go to bed. Now they don't go to bed right away, but they go hang downstairs.
Sure.
And so they're very respectful of us. But when your bedroom is right outside the living room and the TV is on your wall, just on the other side of your bedroom wall, we have had to say, like we really need to turn the TV like way down, or we need to turn that off by a certain time at night. Like Bryce is still getting up to go to work in the morning or whatever. Because literally we can be in our bedrooms and the TV's right there and it's just blasting. So we've had to kind of navigate that in different houses. In this house, we've been very, very thankful and blessed. We have a TV in the basement. So now we'll just kind of say, hey, you want to keep watching that? Can we just turn that on in the basement, or something like that?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Noise. The noise can be a thing.
Yeah. And we have a small house. And then, like I said, the bedrooms are close together. And if you have guests, there's more people than usual up there. And so I try to have a sound machine in every room because I just feel like that, I don't know, just kind of provides a buffer between people.
Marie, that is so smart. Okay.
So, and I also, they do that? Okay. And I also turn on, I do this for myself too at night. I turn on the fan, like the fan that runs for the heat and air, just runs constantly because I don't like it shutting off. It's shutting on. Like this way, the fan keeps running constantly. And also I feel like that provides a buffer for everybody up there too. Like there's a constant noise. There's not a time where it just goes silent. I don't like those times.
Oh, that's a good idea.
When you mentioned boundaries and hospitality, I thought, well, in a way that seems counterintuitive, like you're supposed to be serving and giving.
Right.
But I kind of took it as you need to know your own limits too.
Thank you. Yes.
And like maybe you still need a nap with guests over, or you need to go to bed early. I know it's always my temptation to want to stay up really late and talk to them, but if, or what you let your kids watch, or, like there can be differences of opinions and preferences. And I remember one time we were hosting a D Now group that's a Discipleship Now. It's where you have teenagers in your home all weekend. And this was before I even had kids in the youth group. And this was, that's a good thing to do, but it just wasn't. I probably should have said no. We were remodeling our house, and you know how when you have hardwood floors put in, you have to let them acclimate in the house. So we had piles of hardwood around our house, and then we have 12 teenage girls, and they're in your kids' bedrooms. They're on the floor. They're and you're driving them, feeding them, getting very little sleep. And our dog had to have surgery during that time too. And so the vet said, here, you need to take your dog home and keep him really still and quiet. Well, you can't keep a lab quiet with 12 people around, And I just remember thinking I had reached my limit that weekend. And I probably wasn't a very good hostess. So I think, just knowing maybe if you're going to have a lot of people over, trying to get some rest before they come, not overextending yourself. Like right now, for me, boundaries might look like ordering a smoked turkey for Thanksgiving and 2 pies from a restaurant. Or maybe not cleaning behind the fridge and under the beds and organizing every closet, before they get here. That's just,
nobody.
I don't need to do that, because it'll take away from me next week.
Yeah.
So we're recording this before Thanksgiving, so what I'm dealing with. So
good timing. I literally wrote in my journal this morning that I needed to view. So next week we are going to have a house full. So my big kids are coming home, and I'm so excited. And we're also going to have family come from Kansas, and so that could be 5 extra people. So that's a lot of people in the house, which is completely awesome. But I know personally what I need to do as the host is I even made a list, like get good sleep. I'm glad you brought that up, Julie. I need to make sure I exercise, like not as like actually to get through, to be able to be at my best. I need to exercise. I need to sleep. I need to eat good foods and know, almost like you're going to run a marathon and you eat specific foods leading up and during the race. And I need to have quiet time. And that quiet time is harder to make happen every day almost, because I feel the most selfish about that. Like the other activities, I'm doing something, whereas the quiet time, it's like, how do I get quiet? And when do I do that? But I'd almost have to say the other thing is Bryce and I have hosted enough, and we've had a lot of people in our home for extended periods. He and I will tend to bicker at one another the longer people are in our home. It just naturally happens because we have no time regularly where it's just him and I to talk. So those normal conversations get put on hold, and then we get frustrated with one another. So we've learned as a couple that we actually have to take time just alone, like to talk, and not just business talk. Like we did something the last time we hosted people in our home for a while. We started taking little walks together, like just the two of us. That was a game changer. To get out, walk together, talk, be active, move. It kind of hit a lot of the things that we needed. Yeah. But I mean, because we do tend to, I mean, it gets stressful. You love the people coming, but it does get more stressful. And you kind of have to just know that, I guess. Not that, check on me in a week and say, hey, how's that going, Mindy? That list you made of all the things you should be doing.
Yeah. I mean, you have to accept the fact that you're going to be drained at the end, but at least you might not be drained and beating yourself up for losing it.
Yes.
Drained and bitter.
Right.
Right. I don't want to dread it going into it. I don't want to lose it and get upset. Yeah. So I'm even planning activities for every day. So, and that doesn't have to be an away from the house activity, but kind of a loose plan for each day when people are just coming to hang out.
You're putting your cruise director hat on, Mindy.
I really need to. It goes better if I can be in that good spot. So I noticed a couple weeks ago when I started talking about Thanksgiving that the boys were kind of grumbling about the things I was asking them to clean, because it's more, you ask them to do more when people are coming to your home. I don't know why. I really just felt like I needed to intentionally sit them down and say, this is why we do what we do. Like in the future, when you're a grown adult, your home, your car, your yard, the way you dress, the way you host people is a reflection of you. All of those things reflect what kind of person you are. Like, do you love other people? And that shows how you host someone. Do you sacrifice for other people? Are you willing to serve other people? I mean, we had a major conversation about this. Like the bigger picture of why do we scrub the toilet and get the dust off the ceiling fan or change the sheets. It's a loving gift that we can give others, but also those things that, those daily cleanliness things, like I mentioned, the car and the room, like those are just good practices and habits. I said, because you know how you work at Chick-fil-A and you guys get a score on how clean you are, and you're going to be shut down if your kitchen's not clean. Well, nobody comes in your home to make sure you're not infecting yourself with some sort of bacteria because you haven't cleaned it. So listen, there's a logical reason, but there's also like, go beyond that. So first of all, you don't want to infect yourself in your own home. Second of all, I'm going to come to your house one day and I want you to know how to clean it for me.
Right.
Yeah. I'm going to be a guest there one day, so it needs to be clean.
Right. Well, this conversation really resonated with my 16-year-old son. I'm not sure why this perspective put him to work. Like he worked so hard on the list that I had given him. He went over and above. Like he wants to almost be his best self, essentially. Like he wants to have a high standard for his life. And he didn't know how to do it before. Like they have to be taught because it's not natural.
Oh, that's great. That's a great analogy with the Chick-fil-A thing. It's so relevant. And makes so much sense.
Well, I agree, Mindy, that teaching them is so important, and it starts young, and you just keep it going. And a lot of times you think, is this registering it all is,
Mhm.
you know, but having 3 adult children out of the home, I've seen it all kind of come full circle now. And my kids, 2 of them were quite messy. And now they are very neat. They like things to be a particular way and
Mm.
just so and very clean.
Mhm.
And it's fun to go visit to see where they live because they take such pride in it and care for it. And our daughter loves hospitality and opening up her home and hosting
Mhm.
and so I think you do have to teach it, but I do think some of it is modeling it. And not that we ever did it like to teach it, but that's just how we were. And I've
Mhm.
seen that they kind of picked up on that. They saw us hosting Bible studies in groups and bonfires and D-Nows. And we've
Mhm.
hosted people on Thanksgiving that didn't have a place to go. And
Mhm.
even on Christmas Day. And we've had someone live in our house for one was about a month and one was about 2 years, and we hosted an exchange student whose assignment fell through at the last minute. We said, you can come live with us, and I just wanted to say that I won't say that our kids were always thrilled with that they did sometimes balk at that because they're introverted.
Right.
And that is something to kind of consider. I struggle with that a bit because I would have to kind of give some of them pep talks before we did these things, because they wanted their downtime. They wanted their privacy. And it's like, I think you said this, Marie, earlier when you were talking about having somebody come home for Thanksgiving, like you kind of feel like you're on all the time when someone's in your home, or you feel like you will, like, oh, I just can't take a nap on the couch or I can't walk around like
naked
with my bed hair. Yeah. And even, David goes, Mom, I don't feel good coming out of the bathroom in my towel to walk down the hall to my room, And I thought, okay, that is a sacrifice, but you know what? So explaining why we were doing it. And I think in the end, all those concerns ended up being outweighed by the good feeling of what we were doing. But those were concerns. And I just didn't want my kids to not feel comfortable in their own home or like having someone over on a holiday. You would think, oh, that's just the greatest thing you could do. But if they were kind of like protective of that special family time. Like it seemed like it was going to be different if a stranger in the house. And it turned out it was great. But I kind of get that,
No, I get that too. Yeah. I mean, at various times I have to pep everybody up, but I have one that he dreads it going into it. And when it's over, he's like, oh, but he's going to be that way no matter what. And he needs to learn that you can't just be that way in life. Like you're still going to have to stretch yourself. You're still going to have to do it. And it is worth it. And maybe it'll never just be second nature or comfortable, but we do things that aren't second nature or comfortable all the time for other people. And that's just the way life is.
Yeah.
I love that you brought that up. And I think that's something that I feel as a mom, like I want to make you as comfortable as possible in an uncomfortable situation for you. Again, just being respectful that they do struggle because I struggle and Bryce will struggle. Like we do have introvert moments that we both get excited to host and we both love the social aspect and, the people and the activity. But I do know that my room has always been like the safe zone. And so especially if a kid doesn't have their room, in their home, that they could go to my room and shut the door. Nobody's going to say a word. Like, just go on in there. That's your space. And Bryce and I will take time too. Like sometimes if we are hosting for extended periods, he and I will take turns. Sometimes I'll just go sit on my bed and read a book. If it's like a week or two and people are in the house, it's I have to be okay with that. Like I have to take advantage of it. Because it's easy to just give until you're toast. And so I just don't want to get there. I want to make it to the end of the marathon. And Marie, you said this on another episode. Can we all end on a good note?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I think that's a good note to end on for our episode. This was so great. And these are great tips. And I think all of us, even if we don't have teenagers living in our house, I mean, sometimes I can act like a teenager about hosting.
Oh, amen.
Or I can act like a teenager about cleaning. And it's a good reminder to me, that I want to put my best foot forward. I want to do what's right. And I want to make my guests feel comfortable. And sometimes that means sacrificing or feeling uncomfortable myself. It's not just for teens.
Very true.
All right, listeners, if you want to come and tell us about your hospitality tips or tricks or your cleaning tips or tricks, we would love to hear from you. You can find us on Instagram at Midlife Matters Podcast or email us at midlifematterspodcast@gmail.com. All right, Julie and Mindy, it was good talking with you.
Yeah.
Always great
fun.
talking to you. Yes.
All right, we'll talk to you next week.
Sounds great. Bye.
We're so happy you joined us today. You can find the show notes for this episode at midlifematterspodcast.com. Also, please tell a friend about the show and help them hit the free subscribe button on their favorite podcast app. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at Midlife Matters Podcast. That's where we post pictures and stories about all the things we talk about in each episode. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.